After getting up from the bamboo bed, he threw the torn stockings to me. I have a girlfriend now. Take your stuff away so she won't get jealous. I was stunned. You have a girlfriend, why did you ask me to come? He smiled frivolously. She's so good, I can't bear to touch her. 01. When I woke up from Luke Crawford's bed, it was already bright. I stood up and put on my clothes and I froze with pain all over my body. The clothes were still intact, but the stockings she wore last night had been torn to pieces and could no longer be worn. I put it down and was about to get up. Luke picked up the stocking, crumpled it up and threw it back. Take your stuff away. I don't care. Didn't they all stay here? Just throw them away. He sat up with his upper body naked and said nonchalantly, I have a girlfriend, don't let her see it so she won't get jealous. I was stunned. A few seconds later, I held the torn stockings in my hand and opened my mouth. You have a girlfriend, why did you ask me to come? Luke smiled, the morning light shining on the side of his face. He raised his eyebrows with a helpless and frivolous look. She's so good. I couldn't bear to touch her. Just as I was stunned, he hugged me from behind, his voice still retaining the hoarseness of unsatisfied. Come see me tomorrow night, okay? 02. That night, Luke announced to his friends that he had a girlfriend. When he invited everyone to dinner, he smiled with his eyebrows curved, hugged the girl in a white suspender skirt beside him and said loudly, This is your sister-in-law from now on, Bianca. The atmosphere in the room was awkward for a moment, and I could feel everyone's eyes were on me. Over the years, everyone has witnessed how close Luke and I have been. He has had so many women around him, but I have always been with him. I myself thought that sooner or later, he would change his mind and come back to me. But he has a girlfriend now. After a while, everyone started to make a noise. My sister-in-law is so beautiful. You are so lucky, brother Luke. Where did you find such a pretty girl? Luke, you are so dishonest. You have been hiding it from us. My sister-in-law looks like a refined person. You should be more reserved in the future and don't scare her away. The little girl next to Luke blushed and was shyly held in his arms. In my opinion, this girl is not very pretty. Compared with Luke's model ex-girlfriends who are 175 centimeters tall and have a 36D bust, she is at most a pretty girl from a small family. However, she had a kind of purity that none of his previous girlfriends had. She snuggled in Luke's arms like a frightened little rabbit. Very well behaved. My heart felt sour and painful. No wonder he said he couldn't bear to touch her. Luke seemed really happy. After 3 rounds of drinks, he came to me with a glass of wine. Sharon, shouldn't you respect your sister-in-law? I just had a gastroscopy and was diagnosed with gastritis. The doctor told me to stop eating spicy food and drinking alcohol. I forced a smile and picked up the teacup on the table. Sorry, sister-in-law, I have gastritis these days. I will offer you tea instead of wine. Hey. Luke took the cup from my hand and frowned. You look down on your sister-in-law, don't you? What kind of tea are you drinking? Bianca gently pulled his sleeve and whispered, It's okay if Sister Sharon is not feeling well. It's the same as drinking tea. You don't know. Luke poured a glass of white wine into my glass and held her hand with a smile. She's just pretending. Normally, she can drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk. Before, when we went out to drink, she could make everyone at our table drunk. I paused holding the wine glass and wanted to explain. No, I've been tossing and turning at night lately because of stomach pain and can't sleep. In fact, I haven't touched alcohol for half a year. Luke looked down at me, his beautiful eyebrows slightly raised, with a hint of contemptuous mockery. Sharon, are you jealous? I was silent. Even though I hadn't drunk any alcohol yet, my stomach started to ache for some reason. Those intimate and unspoken ambiguities when he said them in a joking tone really seemed like a joke. I could barely hold back the smile on my face, so I raised my glass. What would you like to drink, sister-in-law? Is white wine okay? Luke laughed. Drink the shit. She doesn't drink alcohol. Just drink some water. Bianca snatched the wine from his hand and muttered, I'm not a child anymore. I can drink. Don't keep doing this. I didn't want to listen to her anymore, and almost awkwardly poured the white wine into my mouth. The transparent liquid rolled into my stomach from my esophagus like magma. My already aching stomach suddenly felt a sharp pain. I took a deep breath and endured it. Bianca took a sip of the wine and immediately started coughing. Her face turned red and her eyes were watery. Luke quickly patted her on the back, his complaints filled with heartache. I told you that you couldn't drink it, why did you insist on it? Are you feeling better now? The little girl lowered her head and kept silent, looking aggrieved. I turned the glass over to show Luke, then put it down and walked away almost as if I was running away. I'm going to the bathroom. 03. I rushed to the bathroom, my stomach was tightening and churning, and I vomited for a long time but it hurt even more. I swallowed a stomach medicine and waited for a while before going out. When I came out, I saw Luke leaning in the corridor with a box of milk in his hand. Seeing me coming out holding my stomach, he raised his eyebrows. You really have gastritis? I thought you were making excuses. I subconsciously thought that the milk in his hand was for me, so I reached out to take it. Luke avoided my hand and frowned. It's not for you. I was startled but saw Luke handing the hot milk to Bianca behind me. You drink even though you don't know how to drink. Now you have a stomachache, right? Bianca took the milk, smiled and took Luke's arm and said coquettishly, I know you're the best, and you even went out of your way to buy me some milk. Turned out to be bought for Bianca. I was saying in all the years I've known Luke, I've never seen him be so considerate. Before, I went to his house to accompany him when I had a high fever, but I never saw him pour me a glass of water. Bianca glanced at me and suddenly handed me the milk. Sister Sharon, are you feeling upset too? I'll give you some to drink. Her movements were natural, but I could see the hostility and provocation flashing across her eyes. Luke pressed the box of milk into her hands. You have no time to bother with other people. He glanced at me. I paused and waved my hand. Thank you, no thanks, just drink it. Then turn and leave. How strange. The stomach medicine I took just now seems to have lost its effect. Why is it getting more and more painful? 04. After the dinner, I walked out of the private room, but I heard Bianca's voice in the corridor. What is your relationship with Sharon? Why are people looking at her when you introduce me? I turned slightly to the side and saw the little girl looking up at Luke, her delicate brows furrowed. Luke touched her head. What relationship do I have with her? If I liked her, I would have been with her a long time ago. How could I still look for you? Bianca lowered her head and muttered. But I heard that you guys always had a good relationship before, and she was the one who always accompanied you in the past. She hasn't been in a relationship for these years. Is she waiting for you? Luke pulled her into his arms and coaxed her patiently. From now on, I have you and you will accompany me. I don't know why she doesn't want to date, but if you mind, I'll just stay away from her in the future. Bianca then smiled and hugged Luke tightly. I don't know when it started raining outside. The red and green lights gradually became blurred in the rain. My stomachache became unbearable, so I had to go to the hospital. But I was drunk and couldn't drive. And it was raining today, so I couldn't get a taxi for a while. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I don't know when Bianca came to my side. Sister Sharon, where are you going? I didn't want to argue with the girl. Besides, Luke was her boyfriend, so it was understandable that she would worry about our relationship. He whispered, I'm going to the hospital. Luke was about to speak, but was interrupted by Bianca, who said regretfully, I wanted to give you a ride, but we have something else to do later, so it's not on our way to the hospital. Sorry. Luke paused and took Bianca's hand back. He frowned at me, held up the umbrella to protect Bianca and walked into the rain. Bianca turned around and waved at me. Sister Sharon, we'll be leaving now. I stared at them as they left. Before I could think about anything, I felt a sharp pain in my stomach again. I no longer knew whether it was my stomach or my heart that was hurting. I just felt all my internal organs were mixed up together, and I slowly hunched my body and squatted down. Just when I didn't know what to do, a shadow suddenly fell beside me. I looked up and found Howard Zachary standing behind me. He was wearing a long black trench coat and the lenses of his gold-rimmed glasses flashed a faint light in the colorful neon lights. Going to the hospital? He said. I'll take you there. 05. The doctor said there was nothing serious wrong with my stomach. It was just irritated. He prescribed me a few boxes of stomach-stimulating pills and let me go. When he came out, Howard was standing in the hospital corridor, the black Bentley's umbrella leaning next to him. The incandescent light fell on his high nose bridge, and his thin eyelids were light pink, which was indescribably charming. A little girl passing by kept looking at him with red faces. Some people even took secret photos of him when he lowered his head. I have to admit that this guy looks really good. Different from Luke's wanton and aggressive handsomeness, Howard's looks were rather cold and aloof, making people afraid to approach him easily. I didn't expect he was still here, and said something stupid. "You didn't leave?" Howard looked back and pulled out a bottle of drink from his pocket like a magician. I didn't dare to move now, and said cautiously, "Is it for me?" Howard nodded, and I took it with confidence. When I got it, I found that it was actually a hot drink emitting warm temperature in the cold night. He whispered, "Let's go. I'll take you back." Sitting in Howard's car, I held the still warm hot drink in my hand. The warm liquid soothed the cramping pain. "Thanks," I said dryly. Howard is Luke's best friend and he shared the same bunk bed with him in college. After graduation, they still had a good relationship and the two of them founded a company together. I have a good relationship with Luke's friends, but I haven't even added Howard on WeChat, because he has a face that looks like he doesn't want strangers to approach him, and he is always indifferent when we meet. I feel like he may not like me very much. I didn't expect that he would take me to the hospital today. Howard held the steering wheel with one hand. Fine. No conversation along the way. The main reason was that we were not familiar with each other. I couldn't find any topics to talk about, and Howard didn't seem to want to chat with me. When I got home, I got out of the car and waved to him. "Thank you so much for today. I'll treat you to a meal some other day." I said this just to be polite. People like Howard probably wouldn't miss my meal, and probably wouldn't even bother to pay attention to me. But I didn't expect him to look at me seriously and say, "Some other day." Which day? I was stunned. I never expected him to ask this. I stammered, "How about tomorrow?" Howard nodded. "Good. Then I'll pick you up tomorrow." 06. When I went upstairs, I was still a little dazed. When I was close to Luke, I met Howard at least 8 times if not 10 times. He never really paid any attention to me, and at most he nodded politely. Why is he suddenly so talkative today and even asked me to treat him to a meal? But they sent me to the hospital and waited for me for so long, so they deserve a meal. I didn't think much about it, and was about to take a break when my phone suddenly vibrated. "It's Luke calling." I pressed the answer button. He said unhappily, "I sent you a message, why didn't you reply?" I took a look at WeChat and indeed he had sent a message. "I just sent Bianca home. Have you got a taxi? Can I take you to the hospital now?" "I'm fine. Howard just sent me there." Luke was startled. "Howard?" I hummed. The air was silent, with only the sound of raindrops hitting the glass. Luke's voice came after a while. "Oh, by the way, I have something to tell you. You say, Bianca knows about our previous relationship and is jealous of you. Why don't you find a partner too? Sharon, you are already an adult. If you don't have any good resources around you, I will introduce you to one. Otherwise, Bianca will always think that there is something between us." At night, Luke's voice on the phone was a little distorted. It is said that the stomach is an emotional organ. I thought that after hearing these words, my stomach would feel somewhat uncomfortable as before. But maybe the effect of the hot drink was still there, so I didn't feel anything. Luke was still talking, probably because he was afraid that I wouldn't agree, and was thinking about how to convince me. I interrupted him. "Okay. Don't be so defensive." Luke paused. "What did you say?" I walked to the window. Howard's black Bentley was still parked downstairs, and the lamppost broke through the rain curtain, reflecting the fine water droplets into warm yellow. I said, "I think Howard is pretty good. Is he still single? We just happen to have dinner together tomorrow, so please send me his WeChat." This time Luke was silent for a long time. After a long time he spoke. I don't know if it's my illusion, but I always feel that his tone is a little gloomy. "Okay. 07. The relationship between Luke and I is complicated and simple at the same time. We grew up together as childhood friends. If we were well matched, we could perhaps be called childhood sweethearts. Unfortunately, our family conditions are so different. His father is the richest man in the city. If his parents' marriage hadn't had problems when he was a child and he hadn't been sent to live with his grandmother's family next to mine for a while, I think we would never have met in this life. In that case, I am actually more like his follower. I have been following him around for so many years and taking care of him like an old nanny. Luke was also very nice to me. He helped me pay the expensive tuition for a private school so that he could go to school with me, and he stood up for me when I was bullied by my classmates. I still remember that when I was in the first year of high school, I rejected the confession of a male classmate. The male classmate's family was quite wealthy and he was quite arrogant. After being rejected by me, he got angry and found someone to block me. He crossed his arms and glared at me. "Sharon, why are you pretending to be innocent? I've asked around, your parents are both fruit sellers in the market, right? How dare you look down on me?" Then he insisted on dragging me to go to the hotel with him. I couldn't break free, and just when I was about to cry, Luke suddenly punched the boy from behind me, knocking him to the ground. His eyes were full of hostility and red, and without saying a single extra word, he sat on the boy and punched him continuously, as if he wanted to beat him to death. Finally, it took several people to pull him up. The boy's face was covered in blood and 2 of his teeth were lost. The next day, the boy's parents came over and insisted that the school expel Luke. However, Luke's family conditions were not worse than that boy's, and the school did not dare to expel him. After a long discussion, they finally asked him to apologize to the boy. There was a hint of arrogance and disdain in Luke's eyes. He sneered. "He deserves a beating. I will beat him up every time I see him next time." In the end, the matter was left unresolved due to the Chi family's background. Later, I recalled many times when I started to like Luke. The image of the boy with a somewhat disgusted look on his face as he roughly wiped away the tears from my face with his fingertips in the sunset always appears in my mind. He said, "How stupid. Why didn't you tell me earlier about this?" I have been with Luke all these years, watching the women around him change constantly, from school beauties to department beauties, from models to internet celebrities, each one more beautiful than the other. But the longest he had ever talked was no more than 3 months. It's not that I haven't thought about leaving. Every time he falls in love, I will consciously distance myself from him, thinking to myself that I never want to be a bootlicker again. But when he ends the relationship, he sticks back to me as if nothing happened. I will be soft-hearted again. The relationship started to deteriorate when he was drunk one day, and I was sending him home. When he was about to leave, he suddenly grabbed my hand. I turned around. Luke lowered his eyes and half-bent one leg. The leather sofa, which was already big enough, was still a little too tight for his long legs. He half closed his eyes, with a hint of water in his eyes. "Don't go." Just as I was hesitating, Luke suddenly pulled me over. He forced me to lie on top of him, with one hand around my lower back. His actions were clearly forceful and unyielding, but his drunken expression and voice carried a hint of grievance, completely different from his usual arrogance. He buried his head in my chest and said incoherently, "Stay with me." Being hugged by the person I have loved for so many years, the last clear string in my mind was broken. Everything was a mess after that. It wasn't until the next day when I woke up aching all over that I found Luke already dressed and sitting by the window smoking. My heart was pounding like a drum, and I didn't know how to react. However, I already felt a secret joy and luck in my heart. Perhaps this was the chance for Luke and I to start over. Just when I was about to ask him what our current relationship was, Luke heard me wake up and turned around. The madness and passion of last night had completely dissipated from him. His eyes were cold and a little careless. "I'm sorry, Sharon. I drank too much last night." Drunk. That was all he had to say about my first time. I should beat him and call him a beast. But I sat on the bed with the quilt covering my chest, and it took me a long time to force a smile. "Yeah, me too." After that, Luke often asked me to accompany him. It was hard for me to say no to him. My friends all called me a slut and said I was a bootlicker and that I would never have a good ending. But that's the person I've loved for so many years, and I still have a glimmer of hope. Maybe when he has had enough fun and has calmed down, he will look back and see that I have been waiting for him. Now that I think about it, I was really crazy. It took Luke a long time to send Howard's WeChat to him. I sent a thank you message to Luke, but he didn't reply. I didn't expect that a person like Howard would have a milky white minute cat as his avatar, which doesn't match his personality very well. The moment I got WeChat, I suddenly felt a little overwhelmed. To be honest, I asked for Howard's WeChat just now because of what Luke said, and I was impulsive. But now that he has pushed it to me, I have no choice but to send him a friend request. I thought it would take a while for Howard to see it, but he passed it in seconds. The dialog box showed that the other party was typing, and then a message was sent. I'll wait for you downstairs at your house at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Howard and I didn't get to have dinner, because Luke called both of us. A new escape room has opened on Shanghai Road. Bianca wants to go. Let's go together. I frowned and refused subconsciously. No, I have an appointment with Howard. Bianca obviously cares so much about us, why would I rush to cause trouble for her? I like Luke, but I'm not a bitch. Everyone else is busy and can't come. It's boring for the two of us, so why don't you come and make up the group? Howard has agreed to everything. I was stunned. I didn't expect that Howard had already agreed. I agreed to treat them to a meal, and even though it has been changed to an escape room, it would not be a good idea for me to break the promise, so I had no choice but to agree. But I didn't expect Howard to call me soon. Luke said you agreed to go to the escape room with them? I asked back, he said you agreed, so I agreed to go with you. Howard didn't say anything, but after a moment he chuckled sarcastically. He's cheating on both sides. I felt angry. It was Luke who clearly wanted to keep his distance from me, but now he insisted on pestering me. In a rage I called directly. What do you want to do? Bianca obviously cares so much about me. Why do you insist on me going? Luke said casually. It's because she minds that I want her to see your relationship with Howard. I'll feel relieved after seeing her. Just think of it as helping me for the last time. I held the phone in silence. Perhaps the blood in my heart had flowed to every part of my body. I suddenly felt empty and cold. I see. No wonder. Luke was still urging. I opened my mouth and said dumbly, okay, one last time. 08. Bianca smiled when she saw Howard and I coming together. Sharon and Howard are such a good match. I didn't realize it before. When did you two get together? I was a little embarrassed and didn't know how to answer. Howard said naturally, we're not together yet. I'm still pursuing her. I was shocked. I didn't expect Howard to say that. My face felt a little hot when I looked at him. Bianca smiled with eyes curved. Then Howard, I hope you can succeed soon. Luke's face looked a little unhappy, and he pulled her inside. Come in quickly. I've never been to an escape room before, but at 27 or 28 years old I don't have much interest in watching these things. I came here just to accompany Bianca. Bianca was scared to death by the NPC along the way, and threw herself into Luke's arms with tears in her eyes. Luke held her in his arms, looking doting. You are so timid and yet you insist on coming to an escape room. You are asking for trouble. Bianca pouts. But I just wanted to come. She looked at me and Howard, and her eyes met mine with what she thought was a well-hidden challenge. I'm always so jumpy, will Sister Sharon dislike me? She hugged Luke tightly and smiled. But I hope my Luke doesn't dislike me. Luke patted her head. Of course I don't mind. I could see that these two people were trying hard to show their affection in front of me. My stomach started to cramp as usual, but I didn't bring any stomach medicine with me, so I had to endure it. Suddenly, a thermos was stuffed into my hand, and Howard took out a pill box from his pocket and handed it to me. Do you have a stomachache? Take the medicine. I was surprised. Why do you bring stomach medicine? In the darkness, I couldn't see Howard's eyes clearly, but for some reason I could feel a gentle gaze falling on me. I was afraid you might forget to bring your medicine, so I went to get 2 more boxes. I was stunned for a moment, and suddenly an idea popped into my mind for some reason. Luke is like my stomach disease, lingering and always causing me pain from time to time. It seemed as if he was punishing me for falling in love with him without knowing my own limits. But Howard seems to have become my stomach medicine, healing the remaining pain from Luke. Bianca on the side said with a smile, Howard is so nice to me, Sharon. You should agree to him. There are not many good men like him nowadays. That's enough. I was startled by Luke's sudden voice. The smile on his face just now disappeared completely. He frowned and said impatiently, Let's go. We have been wasting time here for so long. It's incomprehensible, I said unhappily. It's obviously you who's hesitating. He didn't say anything, nor did he hold Bianca's hand. He just walked away quickly. Actually, I'm not that brave and I was scared by several NPCs along the way. But after all, I'm old and I don't feel comfortable getting startled like a little girl, so I can only bear it. But we didn't expect that when we were looking for clues in the last room near the exit, the bed next to us suddenly turned over. The female ghost lying on the bed and the ghost covered in blood under the bed suddenly crawled out. Horrible sound effects exploded. And the hanged ghost hanging above his head also turned over and opened his bloody mouth towards Bianca and me. At this moment, even though I knew they were all NPCs, I was still so scared that I couldn't even scream. Just as I was backing away and about to fall, two pairs of hands suddenly reached out from both sides to support me. I grabbed my right hand in confusion, and as soon as that hand embraced me, I lay on the chest that exuded a faint woody scent. I looked up subconsciously and saw worry in Howard's beautiful eyes. His hands were clamped around my waist, and the warmth he radiated was hard to ignore. "Are you okay?" The moment our eyes met, I suddenly didn't know whether my heart was beating because of shock or because of the person in front of me. I suddenly thought of the suspension bridge effect I had seen before. When a person crosses a suspension bridge with trepidation, his heartbeat will involuntarily speed up. If he happens to meet another person at this time, he will mistakenly interpret the faster heartbeat caused by this situation as the other person making his heart beat faster, and thus fall in love with the other person. So, what is causing my heart to beat so fast now? At this moment, the secret room suddenly lit up and the door opened. "It's over." I subconsciously looked to the side and saw Luke's hand stretched out stiffly towards me, suspended in midair. Bianca fell down at his feet in embarrassment and looked at the hand he stretched out to me with a frighteningly ugly expression. Why did Luke protect me? I thought about it and felt relieved. He was probably scared too and thought I was Bianca. Quickly smooth things over. "You think I'm Bianca, don't you?" But I didn't expect Luke to just stare at me and Howard sinisterly, without any intention of explaining. Howard looked at him calmly. After a long time, Luke ignored Bianca on the ground and turned away. On the way out, Bianca went to the bathroom and Howard went to drive. Only Luke was leaning against the door smoking. I thought about it, pretended not to see him and tried to walk past, but Luke stopped me. He held the cigarette between his slender fingers, his expression darkened by the smoke. "You're not really in love with Howard, are you?" he asked. I didn't want to pay attention to him, but he grabbed my wrist and stopped me from moving forward. I pulled out a hint of sarcasm and threw his words back at him. "Why, you're not really jealous, are you?" Luke was stunned. After a moment, a sinister look appeared between his brows, and he said contemptuously, "Sharon, you think too much. It's good that you two are together. You don't have to bother me all the time in the future." I was silent. Turns out that Bianca is really different. When Luke was in a relationship before, he was never afraid of his girlfriend getting jealous and always contacted me. But now he doesn't want me to bother him anymore. "Okay," I whispered. "Don't worry. I won't do that anymore." 09. This escape room attempt was a failure. Bianca was not relieved, but seemed to be even more bothered by me. The next day, I saw Bianca's circle of friends. She posted a photo with the caption, "Thank you for the apology gift, baby. I like it very much. I will forgive you this time." When I saw that picture, my fingers paused slightly. It was a painting with all too familiar brushstrokes, because that's what I drew. Luke has always loved art and has his own collection. When he was in college, he liked Carl Gustav Caris's The Dream of Faust. I started drawing this picture 3 months before his birthday. Although I majored in fine arts, I was only a novice. I drew it many times but was never satisfied with it. In the end, I stayed up for several nights to complete this picture. I gave it to Luke happily, and he was also very happy and hung the painting in his bedroom. And now he gave the painting to Bianca. I know that Bianca sent this post to me as a response to Luke reaching out to me in the escape room. It wasn't the painting that pleased her, but it tramples on me who painted this picture. He knew I could see it, but he made the choice between the two of us without hesitation. That's right, that was his girlfriend. He had already made his choice. 10. After that, Luke and I didn't keep in touch for a long time. Instead, I contacted Howard more often. He changed his previous cold attitude towards me, and was very active in looking for me every day. As a result, I didn't receive any message from him that day. The pain was extremely severe and heart-wrenching. I was anxious. Then I'll go over now, you wait for me. Howard paused and said, will this trouble you? Is it convenient for you? After getting my affirmation, he breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, then I'll wait for you. When we got to Howard's house, he opened the door before I rang the doorbell. He was wearing a gray home suit, with his black hair scattered over his white forehead. He did look like he had a severe fever, with a flush on his face. Howard usually wears suits and coats, which look good but seem a bit distant. Now I feel several years younger, like a college student, and the feeling of alienation has disappeared. Have you taken your medicine? Howard shook his head. I pushed him back onto the bed, took out the medicine and fed him. Howard finished drinking the water but didn't return the cup to me. Instead, he held the cup with his head down in a daze. I don't know if it was because of his severe fever, but the tips of his ears were red. It's rare to see him acting silly like this, and I suddenly felt that Howard also has a very cute side. The sun gradually set, the shadow of the setting sun shone through the curtains, and the whole world turned into a faded oil painting. The room was very quiet. We usually have a lot to talk about, but when we are alone in a room we don't know what to say. I was a little embarrassed and stood up and said, I'll go make some porridge. You take a rest first. As soon as I walked out of the room, a kitten jumped out from somewhere, circled around me, and I almost stepped on it. It was the milky white minute with Howard's head in the picture. The kitten was so cute that I couldn't help but squat down and touch its head. It is not afraid of people. It raises its head and rubs my hand hard. I was about to pick it up when my cell phone rang. It's Luke, he said dissatisfiedly. Sharon, it's my birthday today, where were you? I was stunned and looked at the date on my phone. March 12th is indeed Luke's birthday. Luke doesn't like celebrating his birthday because his mom died on his birthday. When Luke was 12 years old, his mother discovered his father's affair with another woman. Their happy marriage of more than 10 years was shattered and became a joke. Luke's mother suffered from severe depression and finally jumped from the top floor of his father's company on his birthday and died on the spot. Since then, Luke has never celebrated his birthday again. Every year on his birthday, he only spends his time with me. We didn't buy a cake, we just stayed at home together to have a meal and talk. He said he didn't want to be alone that day because it would remind him of his mother. So I would spend the whole day with him. I always attach great importance to Luke's birthday because he never accepts gifts from others and only accepts gifts from me. But this year he fell in love and I didn't think about it anymore. I thought Bianca was special to him and she would be there for him instead of me. I lowered my eyes and looked at the kitten lying on its belly on the ground. Shouldn't you go spend time with Bianca? We've always spent it together before, and you haven't given me a gift yet. I chuckled. Give you another gift, and then you give it to Bianca to please her? Luke fell silent. I stroked the kitten's belly and said, Luke, you are right. No matter how good our relationship was before, now that you have a girlfriend, we should keep our distance. I took a deep breath. Let's keep in touch less in the future. Luke sounded a little unhappy. No matter what, you just won't come to accompany me, right? He seemed to feel that he couldn't get angry with me at this time, so he softened his tone. Sharon, you've always been the one celebrating my birthday with me. So even if you suddenly want to keep your distance, you should at least give me some time to relax. When you're not around, I'll always think of my mom, and I'll feel bad. Hearing him say this, I became soft-hearted again. If it were someone else, I would probably call him a jerk. But when it comes to myself, this is the person who has been with me for more than 10 years and the person I have liked for so long. He showed weakness to me, and it was hard for me not to be soft-hearted. Just as I was hesitating, a weak voice suddenly came from the side. Are you leaving? I looked up and saw Howard was not wearing slippers and was standing barefoot on the cold floor. He looked like he had a severe fever, with red eyes, but he still forced a smile. I forgot, today is Luke's birthday. He lowered his eyes, his long eyelashes casting a fan-shaped shadow on his face, and said dejectedly, You go and keep him company. It's okay for me to be alone. Although he said so, he couldn't even stand steadily. He staggered and held on to the wall. I quickly stood up and supported him. Are you okay? I told you to have a good rest, why did you come out? Luke's voice on the other end of the phone was somewhat cold and distorted. "You are with Howard?" I didn't have time to say anything more to him, and said hurriedly, "Yes, I can't go today, you can ask Bianca." "Sharon." I hung up the phone before he finished speaking. Howard half leaned on me, his voice a little weak. "Is it okay for you not to accompany him? I heard that you always accompanied him on his birthday in the past." I said angrily, "Come on. I'm almost going crazy and I'm still drinking tea, stop pretending. I'm not a fool. How could a grown man with a fever be so weak that he couldn't even stand? This guy looks like he has a very serious face, but I didn't expect the smell of tea to be so strong." Howard pursed his lips, but a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I helped him to the bed and was about to leave, but my hand was suddenly grabbed. I turned around and saw Howard lying on the bed. The night fell on his face. I couldn't see his expression clearly, but I could hear his serious voice. "Don't like Luke anymore, he's not good to you. Sharon, you like me, don't you?" 11. The only sound in the silent and dim bedroom was the pounding heartbeat. Can't tell who it belongs to. I opened my mouth slightly. "When did you like me?" Howard made no secret of his love for me. We were adults now, and I didn't want to play the two-timing game with him. I just don't know when he fell in love with me. Howard avoided my gaze, looking shy for once. "Very early on. Back then, you were always with Luke to take care of him, and I thought you were such a fool. But later on, I actually started to feel a little jealous. I thought, why do you only have eyes for Luke? I wish you could see me instead. But at that time you only had eyes for Luke, and I always thought you two would be together. I don't want to steal my friend's girlfriend, but now that he has a girlfriend, I can pursue you." I rarely heard him talk so much. My heart was moved and indescribable emotions grew. During these days with Howard, I really rarely think about Luke. Just like my stomach, it reminds me to take medicine almost 3 times a day, and now it hardly hurts anymore. Just as I was about to speak, Howard suddenly pulled me over. I lost my balance and fell on him, feeling his hot temperature transferring to me from his hand on my lower back. I held onto his chest and tried to get up, but Howard, who was so weak that he couldn't even stand, held me tightly. I looked up into his eyes. Without the lenses blocking the aggression in his eyes, it was a little frightening. Howard slowly increased his force, pushing me towards him. His home clothes exuded a clean, soapy scent. My heart beat faster, and for some reason my hands loosened their grip. Howard's lips were hot, not as cool as I imagined. His movements were gentle at first, but then they became greedy and pried my teeth open. My mind went blank and I felt my breath being sucked away by him. I don't know how long it was, but I pushed him away before I suffocated. Howard panted, his eyes darkening. I struggled violently to get up from him and ran out of the door in a panic. I heard Howard laughing before the door closed. "This beast. My lips are swollen, they must be swollen." I covered my pounding heart and it took me a long time to calm down. I wanted to check the time on my phone, but found that I had 17 missed calls in just a few minutes. Seeing that I didn't answer the call, Luke sent me messages frantically. "Sharon, are you really with Howard? Can you bear to leave me alone? He is not a good guy. Don't be fooled by him. Sharon, answer the phone. I feel so bad. Can you come and accompany me?" My confused heart suddenly calmed down. The originally good mood was now filled with a hint of boredom. This time I didn't show any mercy and blocked Luke directly. This chaotic relationship should have ended long ago. 12. As soon as I left Howard's house, I received a call from Luke's friend. He sounded anxious. "Sharon, brother Luke was in a car accident and is in the emergency room at the Central Hospital. Please come quickly." I was shocked. "Is it serious?" "It's pretty serious. There are a lot of injuries on his body, but Luke is too drunk to check it out, and he keeps calling your name, so come here quickly." At this time, I no longer cared about my previous emotions. Even if Luke and I couldn't be lovers, we had been friends for more than 10 years. I can't be angry with him at this time. I rushed to the hospital and saw Luke covered in blood, leaning on a chair with his eyes closed. Bianca was standing beside him, biting her lower lip tightly, her face pale. A few friends saw me and shouted, "Here she comes, Sharon is here." Luke then slowly opened his eyes. A trace of grievance flashed in his eyes. "You're here." He seemed to be really drunk, his words were a little slurred, He reached out and grabbed my wrist, whispering, "You didn't come to accompany me. I feel so hurt." Bianca's face was so dark that water could drip from it. She couldn't help but reach out to help him. "Now is not the time to talk. Go check it out first." Luke dodged her hand and frowned. "Don't touch me." Then he rested his forehead on the back of my hand. "Sharon, why didn't you come to accompany me today? You don't like me anymore, do you?" There was an awkward silence all around. I quickly pulled my hand out and asked my friend next to me, "What the hell is wrong with him?" My friend smiled bitterly. "I don't know why Luke drank so much. I heard that he insisted on going to find you, but he got hit by a car on the way. The driver said he couldn't get through to his emergency number, so he made a random call, and here I am." I looked at Luke, feeling mixed emotions. I remembered his emergency number was mine. After Luke's mother died, his relationship with his father became strained. He broke with his family very early on, and everything he has today is the result of his own hard work. When he was filling out the emergency contact form, I was next to him. He wrote my number and shook it at me, smiling. "My life is in your hands from now on." Over the years, our emergency contacts have always been each other. I didn't expect that he hadn't changed it yet. And I just blocked him. No wonder he couldn't get through to me. I didn't care that Bianca was still there, and I grabbed Luke. "Get up and check." Luke looked up at me. After drinking, his eyes became much clearer. When they were filled with light, they looked like a puppy wet. "Sharon, you used to fly halfway around the world to celebrate my birthday with me. You said you would always be with me. Why has your attitude changed now?" I remembered what he was talking about. When I was in college, I once went to the United States to participate in a physics competition. That competition happened to fall on his birthday, and I didn't have time to adjust to the jet lag. I immediately bought a plane ticket and flew back across the ocean after the competition. Actually, it was a bit late. It was already past 10 o'clock in the evening when I got home. I opened Luke's door breathlessly. The door took a long time to open, and it was also like this with wine bottles all over the floor. The lights in the living room were off. Luke was sitting alone in the shadows looking up at me. I didn't say a word and rushed over to hug him. After a long time, Luke slowly hugged me back, his voice hoarse. "I thought you wouldn't come back to be with me." At that moment, I didn't know why tears came out of my eyes. I choked and said, "I will always be with you." Luke held me tighter and tighter, as if trying to rub me into his body. That was the closest Luke and I have ever been. At that time, I was really naive and stupid to think that we needed each other. No one could live without the other, and we would be together sooner or later. But how come everything changed after a few years? Or maybe he never changed from the beginning, but I just didn't see him clearly. Luke bowed his head. "Then there's no gift, right?" "That's right. You were so focused on taking care of Howard that you probably forgot about me." I couldn't help but sneer. "Do you still need my gift? Do you want to continue using it to please others?" Luke raised his head quickly. He said. For a long time without being able to utter any words. He lowered his head, knowing that he was in the wrong. My voice was a little dry. "Luke, you already have someone who can accompany you. Let's not make it so awkward. Can't we just part ways in peace?" Luke stood up, holding onto the wall. "What if I break up with her?" Bianca couldn't bear it any longer. She threw the bag on the ground and cried out with tears in her eyes. "Luke, you're taking it too far." She grabbed Luke's wrist. "Look at me, you've been calling me Sharon since the first time you saw me today. I'm your girlfriend." Luke shook her hand off. "I don't want to be with you anymore. I want to be with." Bianca interrupted her and rushed over to hit me with her hand raised. "Sharon, are you a bitch? You know Luke already has a girlfriend. Why are you still pestering him?" I frowned and blocked her hand. "Look carefully, when did I bother him? He's the one bothering me, okay?" The scene was in chaos. Luke was still drunk and he pushed Bianca away, looking at me with hope in his eyes. "Can we just stay the same as before? No Bianca, no Howard." He suddenly stopped talking. His eyes fell on my lips, and then his face became frighteningly ugly. After a moment he spoke slowly, word by word. "What did you do?" I touched my lips and found that the corners of my mouth were badly swollen. I couldn't help but curse in my heart. Howard is really a piece of shit. He looks like some cool and aloof guy who doesn't like women, but when they actually kiss each other, it's like he hasn't seen a woman for 80 years. I'm too lazy to talk to Luke. It has nothing to do with you. Go get checked out. I'll go home after the checkup. But Luke pushed me against the wall. He clamped my wrists with one hand, leaned forward and said coldly, "You two kissed, didn't you?" He didn't seem to need my answer. He grabbed my neck and started kissing me with such force that I couldn't get away. It was as if he wanted to use this kiss to wash away the smell of Howard from me. We never kissed before, this was the first kiss between Luke and I. But it carried the smell of blood and uncontrollable anger. There was no joy as I had imagined, only indescribable anger and disgust. Bianca couldn't bear it anymore and ran out crying. I struggled to break free from Luke and slapped him in the face. Pa! Under the bright light, the shock and hurt in Luke's eyes were clearly visible. I wiped my mouth several times and uttered 2 words forcefully. Nausea. Luke took a staggering step back. What? What? I said coldly. I said, you really disgust me. The embarrassed gazes of our friends around us were all cast on us. I like Luke, but from beginning to end, I never thought of interfering in his relationship. He chose another person and I was sad, but I also respected him. Ever since he and Bianca got together, I distanced myself from him as much as possible. Even when he asked me to go to an escape room with Howard just to make Bianca stop being jealous, I agreed. But he was always clingy and wanted both. It's not that I don't know what he's thinking. It's just that he liked Bianca at first, but later he found that I was not around him and became unwilling, so he started to look for me again. But even though I like him, my love is not that mean. I grabbed his collar, but he was too tall and it was difficult for me to pull him up. I spoke word by word. It's up to you whether you want to check or not. It has nothing to do with me if you die here. Having said that, I turned and left. Luke didn't follow. He just whispered before I stepped out of the door. Sharon, are you really in love with Howard? I turned around and the slap marks on his face gradually emerged. The redness and swelling were somewhat glaring on his fair face. Luke's eyes were red and filled with sadness, like a dying animal. I've never seen Luke look like that. I raised the corner of my mouth. You're right, I just like him. Luke, are you satisfied now? Teen. I thought I had made myself clear, but I didn't expect Bianca to come to me. In the coffee shop, she remained silent for a long time before she spoke. Luke broke up with me. I don't know what to say, so I can only remain silent. Bianca raised her head, hostility spreading in her eyes. Sharon, can you tell me what your relationship with Luke is? Have you slept yet? I didn't say anything. I don't know what to say. Friend? Or a sex buddy? Or maybe it's some kind of confusing relationship. I can't put a definition on the relationship between Luke and me. All I know is that I don't want anything to do with him anymore. Now maybe we are not even friends anymore. Bianca frowned. Can you please keep your distance from Luke? Ever since Luke and I got together, you've been haunting me. Why are you everywhere? I took a sip of coffee. Ever since I found out you two were together, I haven't contacted him yet. Doesn't that count as keeping your distance? I didn't even want to go to the escape room last time. I only went because Luke said you cared about our relationship and wanted to let you see Howard and so I could feel at ease. Bianca gritted her teeth. But if it wasn't for you, why would he break up with me? You already have Howard, but you're still so unclear with him. You're simply a cheapskate. You know he was very nice to me at first. He said he only liked me, but since you showed up, everything has changed. I glanced up at Bianca. Why don't you dare tell Luke this? Is it because you know that he has a bad temper that you only dare to pick on me, a weakling? Bianca choked. I stood up. I'm going to say this one last time, I never came between you and Luke. As for who he chooses, that's his problem. All I can say is that I won't be with him. As I was about to stand up, Bianca held the cup tightly and suddenly raised it up to pour it on me. Hatred was evident in her eyes. You are all lying. You just can't bear the thought of him being with me, so you want to take him away, right? I twisted her wrist with my backhand and slammed the coffee cup on the table. Bianca was too weak to twist me, so she bit her lips and her eyes turned red. In the end, she couldn't hold it in any longer and burst into tears, covering her face. I really like him, please don't snatch him from me, okay? We were very good to each other before. You already have Howard, so why can't you leave Luke to me? I took out a tissue and handed it to her, then stood up and left without saying anything else. 14. As soon as I walked into the community at night, I saw Luke. He still had a bandage on his head, so it looked like he was fine. Seeing that it was me, he forced out a somewhat ugly smile. You're back. Before I could say anything, he pulled out a picture frame from his side. I have taken the painting back. I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me? I looked at Luke. He was very humble. Luke has always been good at coaxing people, and he has always been good at figuring out my thoughts. We had quarrels before, but he always managed to coax me back. Luke stood up, handed me the painting, and said in a low voice, I know Bianca went to see you. I've already made it clear to her that we're breaking up. I've been thinking about it these past few days. It's not that I like her. I've never been in a relationship like this before. So I just want something new. Luke wanted to shake my hand. Don't be with Howard anymore. He looks like a gentleman, but he's actually a ruthless person. Damn it. I couldn't help but laugh. Didn't you ask me to find a partner? Luke choked and said anxiously, now that I've broken up with Bianca, you don't have to worry about her being jealous. And you don't have to find a partner, Sharon. Can we still be the same as before? No, actually, I snatched the picture frame from his hand and threw it out. There is a scenic lake in the community next to it. The moment I threw it out, I regretted it. Isn't this littering? But that second of anger had burned through all my rationality. I want to ask Luke, how dare he? After hurting me time and time again, you asked me to continue as before, as if nothing had happened. If it weren't for Howard, I might still be entangled with Luke. But people are not afraid of suffering. They are just afraid that after experiencing suffering, they will taste sweetness and then become unbearable of the suffering that they could endure before. Howard showed me what it feels like to be treated with sincerity. I don't want to be a loser anymore. No need. I said coldly. I don't want anything anymore, neither the painting nor you. Having said that, I turned and left. Behind me, I heard passers-by screaming. Luke jumped into the lake without hesitation, as if trying to fish out the painting. The landscape lake was very large and deep, and he swam desperately to grab the picture frame, and swam back with one hand. The night was still a little chilly in late spring, and the wound on his head had split open, oozing bright red. But Luke seemed to feel nothing. Water was dripping from his body. He handed the painting to me again in a panic and said with a forced smile, Sharon, I really know I was wrong. He paused, his eyes reddened, his voice trembling. Please forgive me, please, I beg you. I really can't live without you. There is no change in the oil painting after being soaked in water. But I know it will soon shrink, crack, lose color, and begin to mold and rot. Just like our relationship. Chi Jing was in such a mess. His former high spirits and pride were gone, and he looked so humble that it reminded me of my old self. Like a dog. I should be soft-hearted. But I just whispered, Luke, I forgive you. But I don't like you anymore. 15. At the end of spring in May, I resigned. Before, I was like a planet orbiting Luke, unable to escape its orbit. Now I can finally let him go and let myself go. At the age of 28, I want to let go of my past ties, travel around the world, and try to slowly find myself. I sent Luke one last message, telling him I had blocked him and asking him to find an emergency contact. I packed up all the things he gave me in the past, donated what could be donated, and threw away what couldn't be donated. These things that I was reluctant to let go of in the past, I have now let go of them. I boarded a cruise to the Caribbean. There were all kinds of faces around me. No one knew me, and I felt more relaxed than ever. While walking on the deck, a text message came on my cell phone. It's an unfamiliar number. Sharon, long time no see. I've been thinking a lot these days, mainly about when I fell in love with you. I thought I had liked you for a long time, but I never realized it. Later I realized that it was the moment you left that I started to like you. These days when you're not by my side, I don't know why I always think of you. Actually, I thought I liked Bianca very much. She is very well behaved, the type I have never dated before, and I am very happy when I am with her. But I don't know why I can't help thinking of you when I'm with her. I keep recalling the time we were together, your face, your joys and sorrows, your happy or sad expressions. I began to fall in love with you in my memories. I think I should have liked you a long time ago. Maybe it's just because I'm sure you won't leave. So while enjoying your well-being, I'm constantly pursuing new things. I admit it, I'm an asshole. You shouldn't be with a jerk like me. Between the two of us, I am not worthy. How are you? Without me by your side, you should be living a better life than before. I know I've been hurting you. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just want to tell you that you have always been waiting for me. And this time it's my turn to wait for you. I will wait until you are willing to look back at me again. I thought I would be sad or upset, but I found that I had no emotions at this moment. I just deleted the text message calmly. It's like completely deleting this person from my life. The sun sets in the distance and sparkling golden shadows shimmer on the sea. The pink and purple sunset covered the sky. I leaned on the bow with a cocktail in my hand, and the sea breeze blew through my hair. Just then the phone vibrated and another text message came. I thought it was Luke again, and impatiently decided to delete it. But I found that the number had been changed this time. The text message only has 2 words. Look back up. I was startled and turned back suddenly. The sky looked like sea water rolling into magma, with a hint of faded gold appearing in the gray blue. Howard smiled at me in this real and unreal color. I subconsciously said, "Why are you here?" Howard just smiled. "Because I missed you." The sea breeze whistled past, gentle and affectionate. I curled the corners of my mouth. "I missed you too."